if you step back in investing or being successful in business, most people are searching for the result.
That's right.
Without searching for the source or the catalyst of success. And if you aren't providing value in whatever you're doing, whether that's, as a husband or as a father or, as a business owner, then there's nothing there to grow then.
That's right.
You're a leech on society. I mean, I don't
totally.
so direct about it, and so value creation is a huge part of it. I mean, even for my property management company, these are things I tell my team. We're not doing any good to our owners unless we are providing value to them.
This is BetterWealth with Caleb Williams. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the BetterWealth podcast. I am in the studio with one of my favorite individuals, Dannis. Man, thank you so much for being here in Denver. Thank you so much for just how much energy you bring. We had a private group that we're like training, and I know how your brain thinks. I know that you have more than one question always. And I'm like, if we could have him in Denver, I think it would just add a ton. And it has been nothing but incredible having you be a part of our group. So thank you. I know that you've had an incredible journey in how you think about money, how you think about real estate, just how you think about you as your number one asset. Just quick story, we got connected, I think through YouTube, and
Correct.
you got connected, reached out to me. I don't think you knew how young I was at the time. Maybe you did because you saw the video. But we had a great dialogue, and I knew no matter what, if you worked with us or not, I just enjoy every time I get to speak to you because you're so genuine, but you get it. And so with that, the bar's set, my friend.
No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure. So the reason why we're doing this is we're here. We literally, he had no time to prep, okay? So I want to give everyone some context. We're just meeting as a team, and apparently you were on a roll. Everyone was freaking out. They were like, this guy is on fire right now. He's dropping value bombs all over the place. And so they're like, just get him in the studio. If you're not seeing this, then obviously this interview wasn't that great. But if they are, that means you have something to give. So with that,
once again, no pressure.
With that, why don't you share a little bit, anything I missed, and just give a little bit of context on who they're listening to. Okay. And then let's get into some money philosophy, and it's going to be a blast because we could literally talk about anything, and I know it'd be fun.
I'm sure it will be. So background is in real estate. Have a property management company, my own real estate portfolio. Gotten into real estate development and some other pieces. Always looking for something new, trying to see if there's a new way of doing something, a new opportunity to leverage a new idea. Leverage or real estate has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And people kind of just get used to the same old, and that's not how I like to approach things. Really systems oriented in my businesses, and so I want things to not fall through the cracks. I want things to be handled correctly, but realizing that just owning a property management company or owning rentals was not everything.
Yeah,
there was more to it. Just trying to find what those pieces are to kind of fit together, and have it be a cohesive strategy or approach to not just accumulating wealth, but building a lifestyle, deciding what that lifestyle, what I want it to be, getting to that point, and then being able to give back, whether that's, via mentoring or, through charitable donation or things like that, but finding more in life than just accumulating. Yeah,
I love that. And I think real estate's one of those, like, sometimes I cringe because there's a lot of people out there that are, I mean, we talk, we're not going to drop any names here, but there's a lot of people that are making a lot of money teaching people about real estate. And when you look at it as an asset, when you look at it from cash flow, it can be incredible.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of people that are getting into real estate that don't know a thing about it. And we see a lot of people worse off because they're chasing something that they don't really understand.
Mm-hmm.
What about real estate? Because I'll say this without giving any information up. You're a very successful real estate investor. You have something, by owning real estate, you're able to better show up as a dad, as a father, as an entrepreneur. You're better. You can show up more powerfully at church. You can do other things in your community because of real estate. And you're someone that makes me want to do real estate because I see that it's not like passive, meaning like you don't do anything, but
right.
You do pretty well.
Yeah, it's real estate is not for everyone. It is, people use the term passive income. I don't know that it's really passive, but if you have the right team or the right partners, because you can hire out property management, you don't have to own your own property management company. You can be successful. You can mitigate those risks.
Yep.
You can leverage funds, maximize your investment and things like that. I think the biggest thing with real estate, people get into it because it's got high returns or it's tax advantaged with depreciation or things of that nature. But at the end of the day, you have to be providing something.
That's right.
In order to feel like you're really not taking advantage of society. Right. And at least for me, because I do residential real estate, I provide homes for people.
Yeah.
Now, my mortgages get paid off and other things benefit me, but I have nice homes. I don't have garbage. And so I feel really good about being able to provide those while actively investing.
Right. So what's your real estate philosophy before we just jump into money philosophy? I want to get a recap on what you thought day one was like. But overall, if we take a step back and someone was to come to you with a notebook and saying, how do you do what you do and what can I learn from your success? What would you share with them?
So I think the things that are most important to me is recognizing the fact that you make your money when you purchase something.
Yep.
You can't rush into real estate just because it's the best.
Yep.
Not every deal is the best. Some deals will never be good.
Yep.
And so having some criteria as to what you're looking to accomplish, and then holding yourself accountable to those. A lot of people like, oh, well, it's a good deal, I'm going to buy it. Real estate's going up. And you can buy that way, and in 20 years, you'll look like a genius.
Yep.
But it's going to be hard for it to build quickly if you're not buying well, if you're not able to purchase things at a lower value or increase some value through some change of use or something like that. And so I'm really all about finding the deals that make sense. And, I think with real estate, there's two sustainable models. You have nice properties, you maintain well, and you expect your residents to be qualified, or you have not nice properties that you're trying to take advantage of a certain economic class.
Got it.
And, take advantage of. Now, both of those are sustainable and you make a lot of money, but you can't mix those concepts. You have to keep them very separate. And so I definitely err on the side of having, nice units, well-maintained units.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Sure.
What about the people that are serving the people that can't afford a nice place? What's the solution? Is it just a nice place relative to how much you can pay?
That's a good question. What tends to happen is that people that aren't qualified, that maybe have, financial stresses in their life, or just generally maybe make poor financial decisions, are actually usually willing to pay premiums because they know they're not qualified. And unfortunately, landlords or real estate investors kind of they try to prey on that.
Yeah.
And
totally.
So it's you can offer something that's cheaper and people that aren't well qualified, but it's just a challenge. Really, in that way, charity or assistance is probably the better way to not be in a situation where you're being taken advantage of by a landlord that's operating in that fashion.
So day one of the reasons why you're in the room with us is you ask a ton of questions. And your mind works actually very much like mine. If you notice, the people that asked the most questions today were you and me. And it's because we very much, we understand money, but we ask and we learn through the process of asking and seeing how we come to conclusions. So we talked about a lot of things. We talked about cash flow. We talked about the cash flow model. We looked at LIP. We talked about tax deferred versus, tax free. We talked about a ton. What were some of the big concepts? And I guess I want to let you kind of share not just a recap of what we learned, but some of the things that are rolling around in your head as we're talking right now.
I think most people we're going to spread outside of real estate now and talk investment and finances in general. I think most people think about rate of return. Yep. They think about how much is my account balance going to grow. And I think one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about recently, but was was really hit home today was there's other things that are more important.
Yeah.
When you talk about, the fear of inflation or the cost of taxes, or lost opportunity cost, I think is one of the bigger issues that people don't take into consideration when they talk about making investments, and being able to have that conversation and being able to not necessarily monetize it, but quantify it.
Totally.
So that you can actually look at it and see it. That's a big deal.
Yeah, so lost opportunity cost is very interesting because what we're essentially measuring is all the other things that factor into a decision. So opportunity cost for me makes I think what Dave said is it's the consequences of making a decision. So for instance, by you being in the studio with me, you're not able to do other things. You're not able to eat, you're not able to be with your family, you're not able to do all these other things. That there's a cost by you being here with me. By you spending money on something, there's a cost there. And so what's interesting is very few people, I don't want to say nobody, very few people are teaching, when they're teaching people about money, they're lacking opportunity cost. They're lacking the saying like, what is the actual cost that this is going to do for your long-term future? And I like to look at opportunity cost as looking at today. Like, what is this actually going to cost you in the next year? And we did examples like how you buy a house. We looked at like buying a used car versus a new car. There's no right answer, but you look out over 30 years, the difference of buying a new car and a used car once could be like $300,000, $400,000 over your lifetime on that one decision. That $300,000, $400,000 of money is an example of lost opportunity cost.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, so my academic degree is in finance.
Yep.
You would think that in the years that I spent, studying that degree or for that degree, that opportunity cost would have been something that was discussed.
Right.
But really, it was all about time value of money and like a balance of an investment account or for your company's investments. And the fact is there's a whole nother component with opportunity costs that time value money affects. And so it multiplies, I wouldn't say exponentially, but definitely geometrically over time. It's not just a linear cost that is minimal. It's very extreme.
It's very extreme, and every year that goes by, it gets bigger. Mm-hmm. What other things about today were big? I know for me, it's like the difference between cash flow and everything else. Like the industry is teaching us we need to focus on rate of return. And don't get me wrong, rate of return matters. It does. Yep. But it's crazy when you look at certain things from cash flow paradigm versus the rate of return paradigm. And everyone's measuring rate of return, Dannis, but very few people are actually measuring the cash flow. And I want to start changing the conversation around we do certain things for today and the future cash flow and measure it with that metric versus just rate of return.
Yeah, I mean, and for most people, I should say most investors, or I should say for me personally, it's been a real challenge because that's how you're trained either academically or even just learning through other mentors or other investors that you're looking for that rate of return. And while that's important and it does help grow the overall assets that you have in your different buckets, it isn't what really matters. You can't spend equity.
That's right.
This is something we were talking about today. Yep. You can't spend you can't spend your time, and so if you're only focusing on rate of return and not your life, how you choose to use your time, or having the ability with cash flow to live the life that you want to live, live intentionally. I mean, that's a big BetterWealth component. It's not as fruitful. It's not as enjoyable of a process.
We had another person in the room, and I was talking to him because he's still in college, and I'm just number one impressed that he was even in the room. We were talking about different abilities and how he's going to make money, and I just laid out something really simply, and I want you to comment to this. I said, you got to figure out a way to provide value to the marketplace, but you then have to be able to communicate that value. So many people think they're valuable. You probably are, but but capitalism, i.e. the marketplace, is a place that pretty much highlights value creation. Where does the idea of value creation, how does that impact what we learned about money? Because I think I think it goes very close. And I think a lot of times we get so like we read a book and say, oh, the solution is X, Y, or Z, and we forget the basics.
Yeah, I think if you step back in investing or being successful in business, most people are searching for the result.
That's right.
Without searching for the source or the catalyst of success. And if you aren't providing value in whatever you're doing, whether that's, as a husband or as a father or, as a business owner, then there's nothing there to grow then.
That's right.
You're a leech on society. I mean, I don't
totally.
be so direct about it, and so value creation is a huge part of it. I mean, even for my property management company, these are things I tell my team. We're not doing any good to our owners unless we are providing value to them. We only want to be successful when they're being successful.
That's right.
And so being able to wrap your head around that and actually apply it to your business or to your investments is just a different approach.
Yeah.
It's not the way most people look at it. It's very important.
If they think about it from a real estate perspective, you said this without even saying it early on, you would not be in business, you wouldn't have wealth if your properties were not creating value.
Correct.
What's interesting is properties can create value ongoing, and it's just that we could have a whole discussion around properties, cash flow, creating value versus just equity on a piece of paper. Like, you could make that argument, or you could have an interesting discussion. What I want to do is I want to ask you about life insurance, because I know that you've asked a ton of questions. That's originally what brought you into our world, and you have some interesting perspectives about that. And then I also want to just put on your radar, is there anything else after that we can talk about from the day or what's on your brain? I want to give you the platform to say, like, let's communicate. This could be an hour long if it needs to be. But yeah, talk to me about that, because I know that you had a lot of questions, and you still might. And I think you have an interesting perspective being a real estate investor.
Yeah. Well, when you are going through, all the opportunities for investments or places to put your capital, you hear a lot out there in the media, it's only buy term life insurance, which cheap and is a good tool. Don't ever buy anything else. It's fee ridden. It doesn't do what you're trying to accomplish. And that's why I was programmed. I was modeling that, but as we evolved from, recovery from the Great Recession,
right,
and all of a sudden asset prices started being on the high side. I'm not calling a peak to the market or anything, but as they got higher, the purchase, if I say you've got to buy it when you buy, that's how you make money in real estate. If the prices are going up, then the opportunities aren't there. And so I ran into a situation where no longer could I just easily find the properties at the deals I was looking for. And I didn't want to just give up, and interest rates are super low. And so I didn't want to pay off debt. But real estate spins off cash flow.
Right.
And I need to do some of that cash flow, but I wanted to stay liquid. So if we did see a correction a recession, I wanted to be able to take advantage of that.
Totally.
And I know that seems terrible, but it's opportunity.
Totally.
And how do I stay liquid without being at risk of inflation? If you hold fiat currency or cash equivalents, whatever that is, you're at that risk. And based on some of the government spending, even before the pandemic, I was concerned about that. And so I was out in search of an option, of a plan for that. And through the connections through YouTube and other things, we came together, and it was not an easy sell for me. No. It is not something where you can say, well, here's your rate of return, because whole life accomplishes a lot of different things. You describe it much better than I do, but it accomplishes so many different things. And you have to know all the things it accomplishes and decide what those values are to you, what the result is worth to you, and then enact on it. For me personally, and I'm not saying this is for everyone, I was looking for a liquidity storage component. That was actually the most important part. Then, cash flow and tax-free growth. And actually the death benefit was less of my interest. Now you have to have it in order to have a plan and to not neck it and, run into those situations. But I'm excited about the legacy that I can leave with it. And so I'm like, I'm accomplishing what I want to do. in two facets, and then I'm getting the death benefit and if managed properly, a legacy that I can leave. Because I'm not a person who wants to leave a lot of money to my children, but I want to leave it better than I came to it.
It's interesting. You said something that I'm wanting to work with Dave on is how to actually measure what an and asset would be worth to you. So we look at like internal rate of return. You have internal rate of return of death benefit and all that stuff. That's like something that you can measure and compare to everything else, like investments, but it's not an investment. And so what's interesting, and this is something that does not exist, but we're in the process of making, is how do you go through a process? How do you go through a calculator and input certain things like what's the value of control? What's the value of it growing tax-free? Because maybe we just covered tax deferred is a good thing if taxes are lower. Now, for some people, that's going to be their reality. And I think if we're all looking to the future and we want to be good stewards, you could have a lot of good questions and a lot of good theories about taxes going up. So it's like there's so many quote unquote assumptions, there's so many factors, and depending on how you answer certain things, you may want to put your money, like the and asset may or may not be a good thing, and it may be a lot more beneficial than for some people. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because one thing that I'm trying to change is, I think when I first got started, I'm like, this will save America. It won't, because it's a foundational asset.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
It's a single component to an overall financial structure you have to be
totally
intentional about your life financially, but also in how you live it. And it's just a single piece. Honestly, the thing I'm most excited about with BetterWealth is not what brought me to you originally, and that is your more holistic approach that you guys are developing. I'm very excited to see, focus on the equity side, to give people options, to reduce those fees, to be able to give them better access to the coaches. Not in a fluff type approach, where it's just, hey, I'm available, you let me know if you have questions, but really to take you through these models and say, force you to think. A lot of people are so busy, whether it's business owners or, people that are, employed and have income to save, or investors. They're busy living their lives, doing what they know how to do. You voiced that about me. But I needed to have that touchstone to come back and say, okay, what is that holistic approach? What are all the different pieces that I need to decide what the proper balance is to accomplish what I want? But that's something BetterWealth is accomplishing now, and that's really exciting.
I'm glad that you see that, because we're trying really hard to have that dialogue, to have, like, even the fact that we can model things and that we're making investments into having that dialogue, I think is really important. Anything else when we take a step back about how you're thinking about money, how you're thinking about a model? Like, I want to just give you kind of a platform to share. Dannis is one of those guys that I can learn from. Just take a step back and be like, the way that you ask questions, the way that you articulate things, I find that we think a lot. I think we think similarly on a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree. I think you and I both don't just want the top layer.
Right.
We want to peel it back 2 or 3 layers and really understand what is it doing.
Totally.
Because oftentimes we get sold products or we get sold an idea, no clue what it's about. And, that's just 80% of the people that are out there. But, we like to ask the questions to get a little deeper. But what I love about it is you ask those questions, you understand it, and then you can be that support for the people who don't want to ask the questions. For me, I would have to say that the most exciting part, and this is an evolution for me, not just of today or, this trip, but more recently in my thoughts about investments, is just the idea of the value of cash flow. Not a net worth balance being the important thing, or not your unit count if you're a real estate investor, but really your control on your time and on cash flow, because cash flow what allows you to spend, to invest further, to give, and to just be, adding value to society. And so you've always told me, or I shouldn't say always, but in our relationship and in the time we've known each other, you talk, Dannis, you have to think rate of result, not rate of return. I mean, we've had this conversation, right? And I'm like, I don't know what that, now this is a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, Caleb.
I'm sure half the people never know what I mean by when I say that.
But I will say 18 months after the fact.
Yeah.
Well, not quite 2 years.
Yeah.
But it's coming up on 2 years. I get it now.
Yeah.
It is the rate. It's what you're able to accomplish.
Yes.
What you're able to structure to have it work for you, and it is more than just the balance.
Totally.
It's the cash flow that it's generating. It is the control of your assets when you need them. All of those different pieces. And so you used to always talk about rate of result, but now you're actually showing me modeling.
Yeah.
You're showing me visually and numerically how to represent that and how to understand it and how to value it and appreciate it.
Yeah.
And so that's probably the thing I'm most excited about with your working with Dave and the presentation we had today and what we're going to talk about tomorrow is being able to see it visually and numerically. Anytime it's in an Excel form, I do better.
Yeah.
And so that's exciting because that's really what matters.
Yep. I think a couple things that I want to say. Number one, models and math don't mean a ton if we don't have context of what we're trying to accomplish. And I think the mindset that we've been consistent almost from day one, like do certain things to get a certain result. I know it sounds obvious, but it just kind of clicked recently, and it is so true. And it's like if people can grasp that, like, why are you doing this whole money thing? Why are you getting up and going to work? Why are you doing certain things? Think about that and actually ask why a couple times, and it will become more clear. So that's number one. And then the other thing I want to highlight is on cash flow. You said that everything gets better with cash flow. I would even say the people that are investing money, if you're investing in your 401k, IRA, if you buy into the growing your assets, you're doing that for cash flow. You're doing that for a future cash flow, either in retirement or future cash flow for your legacy.
Right.
So it's a form of future cash flow. And when that kind of clicked for me, it's like everything that we do is cash flow today and in the future. And if we start thinking about that and start measuring that from that metric, I think it makes sense because cash flow is very much of what makes the world go round.
Right.
And you may not like that, but if you don't have cash flow, you will not be able to operate business and you'll hurt. You could have $1 billion net worth, but if you don't have any cash flow coming in,
right.
I don't know what to tell you.
You look at people, and obviously people say land's a great place to invest because it's a finite resource, right? But think about it. Would you rather own $1 million worth of bare land 10 miles from the nearest town? Now it's worth $1 million, so that's great. Or $1 million of, and I'll use my example, single family homes that you're renting to people. What is more risky?
Right.
It's easier to operate when it's generating cash flow.
Well, what's interesting is $1 million of land producing zero cash flow, let's just say. And
a drag because of property taxes.
Totally. Yep. Lost opportunity cost as well because that $1 million is tied up into something that's not really producing.
Right.
And then you have $1 million in property, but let's say you're getting $100,000 of cash flow. Mm-hmm. Net worth is the same. I hope that registers.
Extreme examples are always people are like, well, that's hokey, but that's exactly what you're dealing with. You have to realize what you're up against, and it makes a lot of sense. I think the other thing with cash flow is it's not just, well, I'm going to spin this a little bit. It's not just about money as it relates to cash flow. Well, let's step back a little bit to our discussion about value.
Yeah.
Cash flow is an opportunity when you have it to decide how you want to live your life, what you want to do with your time, do with your knowledge, do with your legacy. I've been being able to focus on cash flow and getting to that point where my goal, I've been very, very blessed where I can worry about, when is enough enough?
Yeah.
What do I need to live? I don't spend a lot of money, but it's nice to know you have enough for what you like to do. And once you have that, you can focus on giving back. And one of the things I was excited to see when I don't know that gentleman you were talking to, the college student or whatever, but it's that kind of, he will be different because of his experience with you.
Right.
I do that personally. I love to find someone who is going to college, an opportunity to open their eyes beyond just the academic world or the employer-employee relationship world and say, there's more for you. I can help you learn about it. Now, you may not choose to step down that path, but you will be better off understanding how the world works. And that seems a little bit like, I have it figured out. I'm not saying I have it figured out. I'm just saying
Right.
I've experienced enough that I can help people gain some perspective.
Yep.
And mentoring people and sharing is another form for me of kind of social cash flow.
Yep.
Where you're giving, it's flowing. It's
I like it.
velocity of social
Yep.
cash flow.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Sure.
Someone sits down with you and says, teach me money 101. If you had to do it all over again, how would you start thinking through the process of how to become wealthy and become financially free? What would that process of money 101 be, and how would you teach it?
I think you have to start at fundamentals.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't start at all with what the best investment is.
Totally.
I think it would start with what interests you.
Yep.
Now, you can't just do what's fun if you really want to, but what interests you, what creates value, and where can you be compensated for participating in that exercise
Yep.
or in that industry, whatever it is.
Yep.
And then it has to come to what decisions are you going to make to invest and start growing your assets. I still believe, I have someone I'm mentoring right now, and he's just an employee for me, he's going to school. He's still got, 2 years left,
No.
but he just bought his first his first duplex.
Cool.
He's living in the basement, living upstairs.
Cool.
I still think, getting in and purchasing your own piece of real estate and starting young,
Yep.
because leverage and time is on your side.
Yep.
Now, still take advantage of all of the things. It's not just real estate. It's got to be a whole approach. But these are the places where you can get started. Interest, desire, passion with value creation, and then saying, okay, now I have something. What can I leverage to increase my assets?
Yep.
To start generating cash flow.
What's your thoughts on debt? I know we share kind of the same philosophy. Dave said something interesting today. He said being in debt versus using debt. Any thoughts?
This is like, I don't ever want to question other people who instruct or share ideas for others.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of gurus out there.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that have it figured out.
Yeah.
Or have a strategy that if you just implement this one strategy, everything's fixed. It's more holistic than that. So
Totally.
I definitely disagree with those kind of general approaches, but you can't just get into debt.
Yeah.
I think that's what's wrong with most of our financial awareness. You have to be able to know when it makes sense to use leverage.
Yeah.
I specifically try to use the term leverage
I do too.
rather than debt, because the connotation associated with debt. Any of those consumer debts, they're just not good. They're bogus. It's a waste.
Yep.
But there is leverage on certain assets that can be very, very lucrative. I was making this comment. If I would have used that certain approach where you don't buy anything, or everything you purchase needs to be done with cash, I would be a fraction of where I'm at right now. Leverage has been very successful for me to accumulate wealth or cash flow.
Yep.
And I wouldn't have it any other way. But you have to do it, correctly.
Yep.
Cautiously.
All right. So you know how I end these things. Anything you want to say before I ask you the final question?
I don't remember what the final question is, so I'm all nervous now. I don't think so. I'm just really excited to be part of a team. Now, I'm not a team member in the sense of working with you daily, but I feel like you partner with your clients.
Yeah, we try to.
That we're in this together.
Yep.
And we have a financial relationship, but we also have a friendship,
totally.
a trust. And for me, that's so important. We don't have that in this world.
Yep.
That's been lost in the financial industry. And so that kind of trust where you can work together and mutually benefit each other and support other people who are trying to get it figured out or understand it, that's really important. And I appreciate that. And maybe less about the finance side, but just as a human, as a friend.
And it's not even an Excel sheet.
Look at you pulling me out of my shell.
It happens all the time. All right. So final question is the legacy question. And the legacy question goes like this. This is your last day on earth and you're with the people that you love the most. I know that you're a proud dad and love your wife and have an incredible team. And you can't give them anything. You can't give them real estate. You can't give them a book. You can't even give them anything in writing, but you can give them a final conversation. What are you going to make sure to cover in that last conversation?
Well, I'm sure it would be, with those people involved that are important to me, it would be very heartfelt.
Yeah.
That's a hard one. While a lot of people think that I'm relatively kind and friendly, I know I can be pretty hard-nosed, and demanding of my team, of my family. So it'd probably be some apologies for that, to be honest. But I think it would just be to remember to, be kind. Try to help others.
Yeah.
I know we've said this before, but provide value.
Yeah. If
you are providing value, people will want to be around you.
Yeah.
And, I'm not sure if my two boys are going to want to really be in real estate. It seems so normal to them. They probably think it's lame. But I want them to, whatever they do, to do it with intentionality.
Yep. 100%.
To try to do what interests them and what helps other people and provides value.
Yeah.
And I think I would just repeat that again. I know we talk about it a lot.
Yep.
But it's really become important to me.
Yep. One question you can ask yourself, are you providing value, are people better off having you in their life? Are you, when you walk into a room, when you walk into a business relationship, when you do a transaction, are you giving more than you're taking? And if the answer is yes, you're providing value. And if the answer is no, and you're being honest with yourself, that's one of the most important questions and one of the best self-awareness areas that you can give, because there's time and it's like, what's the point? So, yep. Dannis, thank you so much. I appreciate you as a friend. I'm so glad that you're here. I appreciate you showing up authentically. And I'm excited for what we're building. I cannot wait for us to all get together at a BetterWealth event, because there's hundreds of people that share the same philosophy that are part of the BetterWealth family. And it gives me a lot of joy, and you are the reason why we do what we do. And so thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening and watching. We appreciate you, and I hope this was an encouragement. And the reason I have people and clients and other thought leaders on this show is I want to challenge the way that people think, but I also know that everyone communicates a little bit different. And so with that, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening to the BetterWealth podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this with the people that you know and love.